Well, I think it's being viewed very hopefully and positively. Obviously, in the Arab world, there's been a lot of anxiety and anguish about what has happened in the Gaza Strip. Obviously, a lot of anguish when Hamas first attacked Israel, but then what's been happening has caused a lot of alarm in Arab public opinion. And people would feel that this ceasefire is long overdue, but they do recognize that it was both sides that were dragging their feet, the Israeli side, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the leadership of Hamas. So a lot of hopes that this will now be a real ceasefire and hostage deal, and most of them linking it to the fact that President Trump will be taking over in a few days, and that he has made it very clear that he would like these issues resolved before he takes office.
Yes, of course, it's now been reported that Hamas had accepted the terms of the draft, but Benjamin Netanyahu's government hasn't quite given the full thumbs up as yet. What can we read into this in terms of, who might be more desperate for the fighting to stop?
Well, I don't think either side is desperate for the fighting to stop. Unfortunately, Prime Minister Netanyahu himself has made clear that his priority is destroying Hamas down to the last tunnel, down to the last man. And he has certainly made it clear that if there is enormous collateral damage on the civilian side, that will not stop him. But more urgently, and his political right, there are two ministers in his government who are continuing to say that if he does make a deal with Hamas and if he leaves Hamas standing, they might leave his government and bring his government down. On the other side, he faces an incoming Donald Trump, who is a tough guy and has made his wishes clear. So that's his situation. Hamas, unfortunately, also has not seemed to care if Palestinian lives are lost in a massive scale. So they've been often dragging their feet. Sometimes it's been Hamas that's delaying the deal. Sometimes it is the Israeli government. But also both sides have been at it for a long time, and both sides have an interest, one would hope, in seeing an end to this.
And given what you've just mentioned about Benjamin Netanyahu's sort of mission statement to obliterate Hamas, do you think that with this deal coming into effect, that he believes and is trying to put out that message that in his case, mission accomplished?
Well, I mean, this is a three-phase agreement, so what he needs to agree to now is just phase one. And he still has the obvious option that if things don't go his way in phases 1, 2, or 3, he can always say, well, I can return to armed fighting. And, that is the case. So he does not have to completely discount that option, but he does have to keep his government in line, particularly those extremist ministers who threaten to resign and bring his government down. He has to survive that in the short term.
And of course, looking ahead, weeks and months in the future, what comes next, especially for Gaza and its residents, given so much of the city has just been completely destroyed?
Well, what it needs is absolutely clear. It needs an end to the fighting. It needs this hostage issue resolved. It needs a clear governance structure for that authority. Ideally, that would be in cooperation with the Palestinian Authority. And it needs urgent opening of humanitarian aid corridors, and then billions of dollars of reconstruction aid. It's pretty clear what it needs. But for that to happen, I think there needs to be a change of policy from the Israeli side or a change of government on the Israeli side. And we all know that the internal divisions in Israel are still extremely acute. And Israel is a very volatile political society.
Yes, and in the last 24 hours or so, we saw breakthroughs in these negotiations mediated by Qatar. What do you think made this deal more likely now than ever before?
Really, it's the incoming Trump administration. I think Prime Minister Netanyahu has been able to bully and have his way with President Biden and Vice President Harris. And he's been able to call the shots in Gaza, on the West Bank, in Lebanon, even largely vis-a-vis Iran. It's very clear that Trump is, an alpha male himself. He doesn't take kindly to that kind of approach. His relationship with Netanyahu is not a very good one. And I think Bibi Netanyahu knows that and knows that he has to tread very carefully. Trump is a big supporter of Israel and the Israeli right wing and will support the wars that Israel is fighting more than the Biden administration would. But Trump doesn't like to be pushed around or bullied, and he wants to have his way at the same time. And I think that has forced the Israeli government to be more serious about these talks and try to bring them to an end before Monday.
And Paul, speaking of ceasefire agreements, the deadline for Israeli forces to withdraw from southern Lebanon is fast approaching January 26th. Can we expect that to happen?
Well, I do think things are going in the right direction. It is possible that that deadline might drag a bit. I don't think that will lead to a major, breakdown of the ceasefire in general. The U.S. is still very committed. I think the Israelis are committed as well. And what's happened in Lebanon in the last week gives more confidence to the international community. The election of the head of the president as the president of the republic, the election of a very popular, very strong prime minister to head the government. These are all very, very good signs that would not have happened a year ago. So I'm confident that the ceasefire, even if it might drag a few weeks, will hold and will go in the right direction.
Okay, Paul, Salem, really good to get your thoughts on all the happenings in the Middle East. Thank you so much.
Thank you.